Hey, hey, hey. Time for the Out of This World story from rSpace. Spoiler alert, women aren't fairy tale princesses. They don't stay faithful because you're considerate and deliver on all accounts. Today on rSpace, try not to take it personally. I left a goodbye note on the table and ghosted my cheating girlfriend. Now she's facing eviction and has nowhere to go. I don't doubt that there are good women out there, but for me, at this point, it is probably easier for me to find a unicorn. I am very genuinely tired of the way that all my relationships turn out. I'm not trying to treat myself as the nice guy because I have my flaws, but I love wholeheartedly. I am considerate, and I do my best to make sure that whoever I am with is happy. But does any of that matter anymore? Because my recent experiences really make it seem like that's not what keeps a woman in this day and age. I, 28 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 28 female, whose name is Selena. We've been dating for 5 years now, and we both met when we were relatively fresh out of college. We met pretty matter-of-factly, but I thought that she was pretty and that she had a beautiful smile. So I forced myself to strike up a conversation with her, and fortunately, that part didn't go too bad. She was receptive, I got to see more of that smile, and the conversation ended with me asking for her number. From there, we started talking on almost a nightly basis, hanging out a lot, and then about 3 months after we met, I asked her out and she said yes. I still remember that day because despite being in 2 relationships before then, my relationship with Selena really felt like the one back at the start of it. Everything just seemed to align perfectly, and we had enough of the same interests to always have something to talk about and enough different interests to always have something to learn about the other. It just seemed right to me. I work in construction, so I leave the house on an almost daily basis to go out and earn my daily bread. Selena works in sales, and while she usually goes into the office, she now has the option to work from home, which I was glad about for her. It's always nice to have that flexibility. I mean, now I wish that she never had that flexibility considering what I know about her now. I know I'm a good lover to her. I'm a good partner. Whether it is about providing or protecting, I do that. It is an intimacy I deliver on all accounts. If it is about having a listening ear or someone to be spontaneous with, I've never held her back in those regards. So for me, the idea that Selena would be unfaithful to me was never a zero possibility, but it was so low that I never had to bother thinking or worrying about it, even in instances where I might have felt some kind of way if it was one of my past partners. So when I noticed that she started acting oddly, I didn't even think of it as an affair. I considered her to be a bad liar, though. I think all bad liars likely think they're good at lying. So her attempts at acting like nothing was off were pretty pitiable to me. It was extremely clear that there was something going on that she didn't want me to know about. But as I said, I didn't think of cheating. I did know that I was going to get to the bottom of it somehow, but I didn't fixate on it because I assumed that it was likely something mundane. However, when that behavior continued for like a week straight, with only a few periods of her seeming normal, I started to get suspicious. It was when I talked to a friend about it that he brought up the possibility that she was cheating on me. I thought it was ridiculous, but he told me that there was absolutely no reason why I should feel like she couldn't cheat on me. If she's a woman, she could cheat on you. You could have Arnold's body, Bezos' money, Chappelle's humor, and still get cheated on. I don't think I've ever told him how much that stuck with me, but that entirely changed the way I was looking at her odd behavior. At that point, I decided I was going to figure out what was going on. Now, I've been reading posts here for quite some time, so the first instinct that I had was to secretly check her phone. But there was a part of me that wanted to leverage the fact that I knew she couldn't lie to save her life. So I made the decision that I was just going to confront her straight up, and that's what I did. There was one night that I got back home before her, so I cooked dinner and waited for her to come back. When she did, I told her that I needed to talk to her, and she seemed a bit taken aback by that, but she sat down regardless. I started by mentioning how I had noticed that she was acting different, and I wasn't sure what was up with her. I said that I didn't believe her explanation that there was nothing wrong, and then I blindsided her and asked her whether she was cheating on me. That part was definitely a curveball because as soon as I finished asking, I left a silence for her to answer. And it was a mix of her looking shaken, saying nothing, and spluttering. I knew she was trying to formulate something to say, but she couldn't think of a good lie so quickly. Eventually, she shook her head and then claimed that she was so taken aback by such a disrespectful question that she was speechless for some time. Then she went on to talk about how much she loved me, how long we had been together, and how there was no way that she would cheat on me because she loved me so much. It sounded sincere, but maybe because of what my friend said, I really didn't buy it. It just didn't sound right. She also didn't seem as angry as I'd expect her to be if I had really falsely accused her out of nowhere. I knew I'd find the truth through other means, so I just gave the impression that I believed what she said, apologized for making that accusation, which she too eagerly accepted, and then we headed to bed. That was it, but it seemed too clean for someone who was just accused of cheating. I couldn't wait though. The moment I could tell that she was sleeping, I did my best to slip out of bed, and then I grabbed her phone. There was nothing compromising in her gallery, but I didn't need to go any further than her text messages before I found something to confirm my suspicions. I hate to say that I was being taken for a fool like this, but I was. I was instantly suspicious when I saw a contact saved as Smith's Plumbing near the top of her conversation list. And we hadn't had a plumbing issue in a while, so it didn't make sense. As soon as I opened the conversation, it certainly made a lot of sense. I was being taken for an absolute fool through one of the stupidest tricks in the book. The message made it clear that the person's actual name was Blake. They chatted essentially every single day, and even without any evidence that they had slept together, there was more than enough intimacy over text for me to break up with her. To say that I was heartbroken would be an understatement. I felt like I was going to have a panic attack, and that's as someone who has never had a panic attack before. I was struggling to breathe, and I felt like my sanity was holding on by a thread. I'm not a violent person, but I'll admit that the kind of betrayal brought out a lot of violent urges in me. She and this Blake guy had been inappropriate since at least 2 weeks prior, which sort of made sense considering how I had started to notice that weird behavior from her somewhere within that window. A part of me is glad that I found out before long, because I've never wanted to be one of those people who somehow has an affair going on under their nose for months on end. I was afraid that I would do something rash, so after putting the phone down for some minutes, I picked it up, documented as much as I could, and then returned it to her nightstand. For reference though, the messages showed her and this guy sending pet names back and forth, talking about how they couldn't wait to see each other again, talking dirty in the conversation, and sending almost nudes to one another. It seemed like 2 people who were getting ready to start sleeping with one another, but probably hadn't yet. For some reason, seeing it in that stupid juvenile phase just pisses me off even more. So I'm not sure what to do. Do I go the route of stories that have been shared here before and make it big and loud? Do I tell their parents, post it online, or share flyers at her workplace? Can I find some way to absolutely ruin her life? I don't know. This was 2 nights ago, but my head is still a mess and the oblivious cheater has failed to notice that something is definitely off with me. That makes me want to hurt her even more. Edit. Just to quickly respond to some of the comments. I work in construction in a very busy city that's always got something going on, and of course, we have unions here, so I make very good money. She's in sales, but she's definitely not on par with me when it comes to our pay. I could make something work with the imbalanced finances, but I'm not quite sure what. I could pull the rug out from under her somehow because my income definitely makes it easier for her to survive in this expensive city. I'll keep you all updated with whatever I might decide upon. Man, I say go for the jugular. If you're going to hit him where it hurts. Moral of the story, you can be the perfect guy and still get cheated on. Update. I'm always going to be a proponent of taking your time to get married. You never know what the other person is going to show you deeper into the relationship. And if you were around when I made my first post, you're going to know that that was definitely true for me, because Selena did me dirty, and it certainly wasn't a fun experience for me. The good thing is that I got my revenge, and it wasn't the loud and humiliating kind that most of you wanted, but it worked well for me, and I know that it wreaked havoc in her life. So I know this is coming several months late, but it had to, because I wanted the cleanest split that I could get for myself, and I figured out how I was going to do it. The place that we lived in together was being rented in my name, and we were 3 months away from the end of the lease at that point that I learned that she was cheating on me. Just for full disclosure, about a month after I went through her phone and saw everything, I found out that she and her boyfriend Blake had sealed the deal. Good for her. Things would be a lot easier for them soon after, if they wanted to pursue a full-blown relationship with him. However, I think that we all know that's unlikely because they like the excitement when they know they have someone who isn't going anywhere. But when you take their steady thing out of the picture, the cheating suddenly isn't as fun anymore, and that person isn't as compelling as a partner. When we entered the final month of the lease, I started putting my plan into action, and I was glad to be. I partly stayed around that long because I needed some time to figure out how I was going to start my life without her, and I also because waiting until the end of the lease simply made things a lot more manageable for me. On a day that she had told me that she was going to be out late because she had to get prepared for an important meeting with a potential client, I just nodded and wished her luck. That night, I contacted all of my good friends who at that point knew everything about her. And the next day, very soon after she left the house, they arrived. We started packing out everything that belonged to me or that I paid for, which was about 80% of the things in the house. And my friends helped me move them into their pickups. At that point, I had already gotten a new place on the other side of town, and fortunately, closer to the district where most of the new construction was going on. With all of us there, it took about 4 hours to get everything moved, which was surprisingly quick. That was when I had the good idea to leave a note for her. Ghosting her without anything else would have been satisfying, but I really wanted her to know that I knew about Blake and how long I had known about him. So I wrote a very simple note, and then I was out of there. Goodbye. Have fun with Blake. I mean, I wish I had put more thought into it and come up with something that was snarkier, but it was a last-minute thing, so you're going to have to excuse me for that. After placing the note on the kitchen counter like they do in all the movies, I was out of there. And as much as I hated to be leaving the place, I needed to. Hopefully at some point, all the bad memories associated with that place will fade away. With my pals, I was able to get everything out of the cars and into the apartment pretty quickly. They helped me unpack and assemble some of the bigger things, but I let them know I'd handle the rest of the things on my own. Those guys are another reason why it is extremely important to have good men around you. They can keep you upright in tough moments like what I was going through. Anyway, it was no surprise when late in the night, she started calling me over and over and over again. I obviously didn't pick up a single one of those calls because that kind of defeats the purpose of ghosting. She messaged me on every single social media platform that we shared. Of course, I knew I wasn't going to respond, at least not anytime soon. I mean, it's been 3 weeks since then, and I still haven't answered any of her nearly daily phone calls. Now, just ghosting her was one aspect that made me really satisfied, because I know she had to be panicking like crazy. However, the second aspect became evident very quickly. This is a woman whose closest family lives 6 states over. It's not a quick trip over to them for her. My landlord called me and said he realized that I had moved out without saying anything. I told him the truth, because I obviously don't care about upholding her dignity. He said he understood. He asked about the walkthrough since I was supposed to be entitled to my security deposit if there was no damage. I didn't want it to go to her, that was for sure, and I really doubted that she'd cooperate to do a walkthrough with him. So I told him he could either keep it or do a walkthrough after and choose whether to get the money to me based on his own integrity. However, he let me in on the fact that he had spoken to Selena, and she said she couldn't take up a new lease in her name because the apartment was too expensive for her on her own. He suggested that she find a roommate, but I know she doesn't have anyone she can depend on in that regard. They all have places of their own. So, she's a step away from being evicted, and there are very few places for her to run to. It makes me incredibly happy, and I don't even feel like a bad person for any of it. Do you know what it means to give your all in a relationship with somebody, but none of that matters to them because they want to seek out the excitement of being with someone else? You can't eat your cake and have it, and I'm glad that things don't look particularly rosy for her at this point. So that's the story about how my cheating girlfriend was ghosted by me, left in a home with rent close to due, and nowhere to go. And I'm proud of myself for staying perfectly out of communication with her this entire time. Maybe one day, I'll pick up one of her calls to hear what she has to say. Because at this point, the curiosity is really killing me. We'll see though. Edit. My great man of a landlord eventually sent my security deposit back based on his personal walkthrough, and he let me know that he has served Selena with an eviction notice. He said she seemed particularly distressed, and I loved that part because I knew he added it because he was on my side. I don't know what she's going to do, but she's a big girl. She'll figure it out. She's always got Blake. Edit 2. So I finally picked up one of Selena's calls. She seemed pretty shocked that I did, but I didn't fill in her awkward silence. She started with, "I'm sorry." I guess that after so long, she couldn't do the, "It's not what you think," because she still had no idea how I had found the truth. I said very little through the entire call, and she cried over and over. It started to get grating. Then she said she had nowhere to go, and she had to pack out by tomorrow. I just laughed and said that she could always move in with Blake. She started crying again. At that point, I was done. I hung up and blocked her on every single platform that she could reach me on. I think that's the true end of my story with Selena. I don't know where she eventually had to go, but I genuinely don't care. If she ends up on the streets, she deserves it. Ah, bravo. You didn't give her the satisfaction of a heated argument. Honestly, OP, I'm glad you did what worked for you and didn't let her drag you down even further. She's not worth the energy. Sometimes people just need to face the consequences of their actions without anyone stepping in to save them. That's real closure. That's real revenge. What do you think? And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.